Welcome to the new professional StarCraft 2, with the first major tournament on the new StarCraft 2 balance patch. And who better to test things out than the former world champion Zerg in the blue, the Italian stallion. It's Reynor, facing off against the more relatable Terran in the red, the People's Terran. From Team Liquid, we have Cure in a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg showdown, with new maps, new balance. The same way of me begging you to smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. I'll be kind of the algorithm. Jimmy, what are we at? 1,720 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I can do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As unsurprisingly, both these players starting out more macro-oriented. The majority, if not all of the changes in the patch, much more focused on the mid to late game aspect of things and kind of changing that dynamic a bit. For Zerg, with Banelings getting plus 5 HP, again, technically, after the speed upgrade, with the Spire being a little bit quicker to build and slightly less minerals and gas, and Microbial Shroud potentially reducing damage from ranged attacks by 50%. Though it does cost an upgrade, and it does cost 100 energy on the Infestor, which is kind of hard to come by. Meanwhile, for Terrans, the Siege Tank can no longer be abducted. Whittle Mines with the upgrade, burrow and unburrow 30% faster. Speed Banshees can upgrade a little bit quicker. And the Ghost, well, the Viking costs 25 less minerals, and the Ghost is now 2 supply instead of 3. It has 125 HP instead of 100, but it's finally slimmed down and is a light unit. So that means Banelings do a lot more damage, but for everything else, it's some more HP to get through. So that's probably the most dramatic change for this matchup, at least at this time, besides the Banelings themselves. But we'll see if we get to that stage of things, as really the early game can sometimes define Terran versus Zerg entirely. And we are on a whole set of new maps for Wardy's Team Liquid map contest. You can vote on these maps right now, though maybe wait till after the match at least. And apparently it's guaranteed the top 2 maps will be on the ladder next season. For the first time, we have a guarantee, as opposed to just a suggestion. And meanwhile, the Zerg... Yeah, stay in the corner. Brenda, don't terrorize the Terran. Now he's swimming with the fishes. Well, Queen boxes in. This is a worker-only path. One of the unique features we see on some of the maps, where you can send a worker down either to scout or to expand to the low ground. And you see 65 minerals, which is over 2 mule trips as well. So trying to open up that mineral wall, a little bit awkward to start things out. But Reynor opting for the mixed gold base here. And hopefully can get that done before 2 Hellions come across the map, because back at home, Kira already has a 3rd command center on the way. I guess you could technically mine from the high ground. Oh no! That drone getting charbroiled immediately. Where are they? I hear a queen. Oh, the geography of the map working kind of heavily against Reynor at the moment, as the Zergs do not have too many easy ways to circumvent such features with their bugs. Meanwhile, Cure thinking about running by with the Hellions, but just the threat of them in the first place already clearly keeping Reynor quite busy. He's still trying to... one more trip, and the Queen... Finally, the Queens could get through. Just in time before additional Hellions show up, though. Why is it only 3 Hellions? He left 3 at home. 3 Hellions are enough to kill Zerglings in a single volley fire. Most literal term. So, actually kind of a cute move to keep 3 Hellions on either side instead of going with the more even numbers. The Banshee sneaking by over the beautiful waters here on Talisman. Ones that are now filled with Reaper blood as well. Ugh. Salty. Fitting for Terrans. Meanwhile, no Spore Crawler, though, with the natural. Cloak is still pretty far off, but the lack of direct anti-air means the drones already have to run. I don't know if he was anticipating the Banshee, though sometimes it feels like it's implied after the Hellions. Not a huge mistake here, considering Lair's already halfway there. And there's plenty of time to build the spores before the cloak becomes too much of an issue. It's just those early banshees that serve the dual purpose of forcing a response out of the Zerg, but also denying any sort of opportunity for counterattack. There's simply no anti-air for Zerg that isn't tied to the knitting needles of the queens or spore crawlers, neither of which are known for their aggressive potential in the early game. So the banshees existing already kind of prevents any sort of counterattack potential, at least until we get well into the lair tech. So, and speaking of lair tech, Reynor has it done. He's got 65 drones completed, plus 1 carapace on the way. But Cure is known for his macro. It's not about how many men you lose, it's about how many you have to replace them. And when the Red Army comes marching across the map, he is more than willing to expend those forces to gain a better position. So we'll see how Cure handles the, honestly, I don't know how much the patch is going to affect Cure. All right, Banelings having a little more HP will make it just a bit more difficult to maybe do those early pushes. But Reynor historically has kind of skipped Banelings, like we see here, to go to Hive, as they're a very expensive unit to build en masse when you're trying to tech up at all. And if you don't tech up, it's very hard to deal with the later game Terran before it's already too comprehensive to deal with directly. There's the Bane Nest. By comprehensive, I know that sounds like a fancy buzzword. I mean drilling claws. I mean liberators. I mean ghosts. I mean potentially 3/3 Marines and Marauders. At some point, it just gets to be too much, and you can't really fight it directly unless you can do some economic damage simultaneously. Meanwhile, Cure going for the Octo Racks. He's got 8 barracks coming online. Armory's on the way. It isn't all in. He has 70 plus SCVs, but he's certainly looking to put on some pressure. Whereas Reynor is going over 80 drones. He's got 4, going on 5, going on 6 hatcheries. One of them a macro hatch. I don't think the one down the center is going to survive, but 1 is completed, but the Marines don't have combat shield. Cure, a little bit late on the pickup, but the Roaches able to drive the Marines back for now. Now we see. Reynor's about to have the Hive. Cure, though, keeping up with him on supply. And has no, okay, he's not built an SCV for quite a while. He's been sitting at 70 SCVs as all his production comes online. I think that's kind of the limit, because there's not as many mineral patches. Am I correct in that? I think, actually, maybe. But there are 3 gold patches mining about as efficiently as possible right now. In fact, about even with Reynor, despite having slightly less workers and bases. Mules, able to drag the income up far enough. Cure, all the pieces are coming together. Baneling speed is on the way. He's going to have that extra HP. The Carapace and +1 melee attack upgrades, but no adrenal glands, no other Hive tech, 3 Vipers in production. But Cure's about to be maxed out at 9 minutes. With Marines, Marauders, Medivacs, and tanks. The M&M and M&M composition with a few Hellbats mixed in for extra spicy flavor. Takes it out. The Corrosive bows around the corner, but the Siege tanks starting to bash their way through. Melee attacks level 1 is about to complete. You need to close the distance for those melee attacks to be effective. The Cloaked Banshees trying to drag anything out of position. The attack down the center. Seems unlikely Reynor's going to be able to hold on to this base. The Zergling counterattack, a few bites taken out by the Siege tanks. The Banshee's still finding damage. Brings it around the top. Marines pulling back. Siege tanks themselves doing some damage. The Banshee is killing 8 drones and getting half the HP of the hatchery is certainly not ideal. Reynor actually down 20 supplies. He starts adrenal glands. But Cure, so far, pretty much uncontested on the field. Small Zergling counterattack, but unable to break this location. And remember, you can't abduct the Siege tanks, but Blinding Cloud could be incredibly helpful, and he has plenty of them. Blinds the tanks. Banelings rolling in, though off of creep. The Marines pulling back behind the Marauders, and the Banelings whittled down enough. Corrosive Bow knocks out the tanks, and Reynor is able to at least dislodge some of this, but the Banshees are still going. Another wave of Corrosive Bow clips one of the Medivacs. But the Banshees are racking up the kills and the damage. And Reynor is bruised on either side while he's able to fight the army up this, consuming its hatchery as well. The hatchery that's about to be under fire from more siege tanks. Will the Banshees actually kill this hatch? The Queens are nowhere to be seen. He's just giving it up. There's no other anti-air. Liberators added into the unit composition. The Ravagers struggling to slip their way through this choke point in between the minerals. And the Banshees killed a hatch. Oh, no. Reynor trying to hold up. Cure just loses a full medevac to corrosive bile. All right, hero, take the wheel. But still, he has the double siege. The Liberators, the siege tanks, spread out enough that a single set of corrosive biles is only going to be able to get one at a time. But here come the Vipers. Blinding Cloud. Maybe some abducts on the libs. Parasitic Bomb over the top. Lings and Banes closing in. Corrosive bile. Did he miss the mark? No. Knocked it down, but there's more Liberators. He's forcing out all of these biles, and now the Bile army is stimming and winning. Terran through everything it's able to get a hold of, and those concussive shells keep it in range for long enough. The Vipers are coming back around to consume. Blinding Clouds, the Banshees swing around again. The Banshees, 14, 15 kills. I'm pretty sure the tally has at least one hatchery on it. The sheer amount of damage, it looks, no, he micros away. Come, this is restricted lair space. Well, you should have said that on the other hatchery, but shut up, Susan. Sorry, I blacked out for, well, an Ultraless Cavern is on the way for Reynor, but I'm not sure if Ultras are going to be... Cure just expanding forward. There's another mixed base. Some gold patches, some blue ones. And the income keeps flip-flopping back and forth. Probably with the drop of the mules here. But so far, Cure has been able to maintain the momentum. I mean, look at the supply. 199 to 163. Reynor's clearly banking up for the Ultralists. But the Liberators are just going to annex this base. The siege tanks... Cure just has a tendency to jam himself. He's like a freight train, okay? He's not a micro-oriented player. This is the full weight of Cure's macro right now. He has half a dozen siege tanks and Liberators on the field, making it incredibly difficult to dislodge this position cost-effectively. Many of these Marines and Marauders will die, but many more Zerg will in the process. Blinding Clouds looking good. Siege tanks completely negated. The Liberators, the Lings from the back, but the sheer amount of Marauders, the Banelings rolling in, corrosive biles across the board, and it might look good for Reynor, but again, the Marines and Marauders are able to survive the engagement. He's building some infestors, but he doesn't have the Microbial Shroud upgrade. He lost the hatchery mid-fight. Well, the Vipers softened it up. And it didn't take much to take it down. Just like this base with the Banshees started and the Marauders finish it. And speaking of Banshees, there's still one of them. Parasitic Bomb will finally take out the Banshees. Their reign of Terran has ended. The Queens assassinated on the right flank. Reynor desperate to get any sort of income. While Cure has not lost a single SCV or building. His infrastructure completely untouched. Reynor has had no momentum. He's been pushed back onto his side of the map the entirety of the game. How do you not kill a single SCV? Reynor, who's incredibly well known, his defining characteristic is the ability to set up these counterattacks that are just incredibly effective. And Cure has completely negated any opportunity to do so. The first two SCVs die! Thereby, all of my commentary is completely invalidated. I do apologize for providing such inaccurate comments. Dislike and subscribe. Well, the Infestors. He's consuming the base that is currently under fire. Fungal comes out. No Microbial Shroud research, but again, Microbial Shroud is kind of a mixed bag. One, it's 100 energy, and there's no way to gain energy on the Infestor besides just sitting there, like an overripe eggplant. And Fungal is clearly the choice in so many scenarios. even if there's so much bio caught between a rock and a hard place. The sheer biomass here. Oh my. Cure. He put so many units on the field. He's lost a similar amount of resources. But now Reynor finally breaking through the wall. Getting up towards the main. Gonna potentially kill some of these SCVs. But, well, the main base is laid out in a way that makes it kind of difficult for the Zerglings. Target fires the Bane. Meanwhile, the main army is still moving forward. It's not like Reynor has a lot to fall back to. He never rebuilt the center base. It's mostly mined out. Parasitic bombs on the nearly completely drained of energy medevacs. And the counterattack is starting to find some effect. Does he have Burrow to keep those Zerglings? He does. Now 18 SCV kills. Yep, Cure spotted it. The problem here, Reynor has done damage to the production and the nearly mined out bases, whereas Cure is hitting the most important bases for Reynor. Oh no, the Infestor wanders into the scan. The siege tank spread trails all the way back to the planetary fortress. Cure is rebuilding. In fact, the tank is walled off awkwardly. Oh! What a save! Parasitic bomb on the Liberators. Some ghosts in production, but Reynor is... Cure's just locked down this quadrant of the map. The Ultras coming through. Well, some of them coming through, the rest going into the units lost tab. Reynor expanding to the top left corner. But Cure, with the supply lead throughout all this, 28 Marauders, 29 Marines. Reynor trying to go through this choke point, but those rocks. Another group of Marines and Marauders caught by a fungal. The Vipers trying to gather the energy. This hatchery so badly bruised by both sides so far. Cure's down to 50 SCVs, but maintains the income advantage. Some ghosts on the field now. And with no Banelings, they're actually just straight up harder to take down. The Marauders gonna pound through the hatchery. The Ultras come up. And Cure? Well, the sheer amount of bio just eventually rolls through. Reynor? Wow, Cure's just... He's still rallying one of us. His tanks are still rattling the wrong way. Apparently, he's walled in an SCV that is really just having a mental breakdown right now. Oh my. You ever felt like this? Yeah, just give up. But Cure has slowly but surely ground out the southern half of the map. A single Cyril Fester underneath. Oh, he spotted it. Yeah, on light-colored tile sets, it's a lot easier to spot the Infestor sign. The worm sign, okay? It's effective. Clearly inspired by Doom 2000, as we've established. When RTS was peak. Back in my day, we used to install pallet patches via CD-ROM. Okay, Grandpa. And floppy disks, all right? Flopping around everywhere. Grandpa, floppy disks aren't actually floppy. Now, youngin', I know. If you got upset about that, how's the back thing? Another siege tank rallied the wrong direction because Cure is more focused on this slow push towards the front. The Ultra's coming down the ramp. But the siege line is so... He's got ghosts in the back. There's no... Reynor's been broke for most of this game. Cure has lost a similar amount of resources. It's just he hasn't been touched economically. Besides a few SCV... he lost the natural. He lost 10, 15 SCVs, but he still has 4 orbital commands. He still has fresh mining bases that are under almost no pressure. Another group of Marines and Marauders has caught the Ultras. Just taking big bites out of them, but the Ghosts line up their shots on the tail end. scanning forward to make sure the infestors are not going to catch him in a completely exposed position. And now Reynor, with 40 less army supply, the Terran army is just ripping through his main base. The Ultras are put in the corner. The spawning pool is dead. The hive itself. And again, the army comes in, but the ghosts, an EMP on the infestors, the snipes on the Ultras, the fungal. Too little, far too late. GG. A brutal game 1, where Cure sacrificing a lot to get into those positions, but then using them to game-winning effect. At no point did it feel like Reynor was, like, that was just more one-sided than a Mobius strip there. Like, a couple counterattacks almost out of spite, where they worked out, but at what cost? Well, an interesting game 1. A tough map, for sure. At least Cure using it to great effect. Always with the double siege. Cure is the player. He's the people's Terran, because so much of the time you'll see him lose a bunch of Marines to Banelings. He'll get his siege tanks rallied the wrong direction and not fix it for the rest of the game. But he's so good. Like, why make many micro when few macro do trick? And that was the most Cure game. He's always been... It always feels like he's losing too much, but he's already replaced it. In a way that even his probably more notorious teammate Clem doesn't even do. I think it's partially an acceptance of his limits as well. Really focused on the double siege. Another thing is, so many times we see Terrans like Beyond and Clem, the micro Terrans, they end up with like 12 medevacs. Just because they're on autopilot. They're microing, micro. But Cure gets like 6-8 medevacs. And then Liberators. Against the Roach Ravager composition. And you can have your arguments in the comments, of course, after you like and subscribe, about whether the Roach Ravager composition is good or good enough. I think usually the intent of Roach Ravager is to break a third or fourth base. You don't want it to be your late game, if possible. Ideally, Hydras, Ultras, Lings. But one does not simply go Hydras. They are expensive. They're not known for their agility, even when they get their lunge upgrade. They're more of a, I have the economy so I can... Ravagers are just better at dealing with tanks, Liberators, and mines. The things that need to siege up or burrow, at least for a time. And I think that's why Reynor leaned into him early. But unfortunately, Cure was able to keep him so busy the entire time. With the Banshees especially, the Banshees, just a constant missile pod thorn in the side of the Zerg. And we're on Old Republic, though. A new map for Game 2. Of course, all new maps. The Team Liquid map contest. And yeah, kind of crazy to actually have a guarantee that the top 2 maps from the map contest will be on the ladder. Maybe more. Like, and it's set... He lost a drone. In the past, it's just been implied. But somewhat infuriatingly, in the past, whoever made the decisions on the maps would look at the map contest, see who won the popular vote, which I'm not saying that's always the greatest idea, but... And then just not put it in the pool. Like, sometimes we'd see maps that were not even in the finalists in the map pool. You know, that still could happen, but now we have apparently a guarantee that at least the top 2 from what you, the people, vote for will be in the next season map pool. I do think there should be a more curated set, still ideally from the finalists. And in my ideal sort of world would be we go back to changing the maps with the seasons on the ladder, which is every 4 months or so. And we change 5 out of the 9 maps. Maybe 7. But Maybe not every single one. The problem is, if we have some very standard maps, they're just gonna stay and be like 50% of the tournament games still, especially in best of threes. Like ley lines, for example. The Evo chamber block. Cure. Trying to run by, but yeah, gets trapped in the corner. Doesn't do much. More Hellions running by. You're a bit optimistic with the Hellions. I want to talk about the Microbial Shroud a little more. You might have seen all the Infestors in the last game. I'm more and more of the opinion Microbial Shroud on the Infestor is a red herring. You simply do not have 100 extra energy on a regular basis on Infestors against Protoss or against Terran. They have Ghosts. You need Fungal. You do. It's not optional in many scenarios. It could be helpful, but it does not nearly. It's not going to be a regular thing until Cyril makes it look super overpowered once, and then somehow it gets nerfed again. But it ain't. If it was on the Viper, now I know. All right, the Viper already has so much. But the reason why Dark Swarm and Brood War was so powerful, every spell in Brood War was very powerful, but it was on the Defiler, which could eat Zerglings to get energy, which, much like the Viper does in StarCraft 2. Very simply, you're so strapped for energy, both because of your own spell casting and because of the anti-spell casters from the enemy, that I am very hard-pressed to see a regular use. Also, Microbial Shroud can be used against you. It reduces all ranged attacks to units within the Shroud. So they can, say you have Hydras or Ravagers, their damage gets reduced as well against Marines. So it can be a liability as well as a boon. On top of the fact it doesn't reduce Sniper Storm at all. So, I am underwhelmed so far by Microbial Shroud. It seems Reynor as well. There's no way Reynor doesn't know about it. He could have built it. He just didn't have any money, and let's be honest, building Infestors is expensive already. But now, something new. Well, not new, but mech. Kira's taken us to McDonald's in game number 2. 5 factories. The Industrial Revolution has already happened in Kira's main base. He's got Blue Flame Hellions on the way. So the Cyclone bug that had it with a like a 30% faster lock-on cooldown time was fixed with the patch after nearly a year, including the World Cup. But Kira's not making a single Cyclone. I'm trying to think. Well, the Siege Tank, no Abduct. As well as, we don't see it here, but Widowmine, Burrow Speed, and maybe Vikings. But otherwise, well, Siege Tanks not being abducted definitely affects Mac. We saw Blinding Cloud was perfectly fine last game, but not as direct. Cure trying to stop the spread of the creep, but it's already almost halfway across the map. Three more factories. The Octofact. Pretty much Cure playing the same style of mech as he just played with Bio. And Siege Tank's the backbone of the whole push. Lair. Burrow is complete. Hive should be starting. Yep. Not particularly early, but definitely not late. It arrives exactly when it means to. The factories, so far, the losses have totaled 3 Hellions, 5 drones, and I was wondering if I was missing something, but no. We're going straight to the full-on macro game. A Spire is on the way. Is this a Brood Lord rush? What year is it? With the Spire being a few seconds quicker and costing slightly less, the Greater Spire is the same. So the Brood Lord bug, where it struggled to attack reliably at its max range, was fixed. But Brood Lords were also nerfed to have less speed. So, the Banshees, the Queens, Lucio, remember when we could fly? Talk to Brenda about this. I don't want to hear any of your shit, Susan. Lucio, we're gonna get demonetized. Don't worry, it wasn't the first 2 minutes. It's fine. Is that true? Nobody knows what's going on with YouTube anymore. We don't have time for meta commentary right now. I don't... Sorry, I blacked out for one moment. Reynor. Spire's nearly complete. Hive's already done. Hellions and Banshees still working around the edges, but almost a 10... Well, I was going to say 10-minute no rush, but 83 Zerglings dying to the Hellions and vice versa. Well, not 83 Hellions, 10 Hellions. Is quite a tally. A greater Spire is on the way. Corruptors, a Brood Lord rush. The feudal society build of Queens and Brood Lords seems to be the choice. The Zerglings looking for the wraparound gank in the mid lane. And the Hellions are just ripped to shreds, I say. Doesn't seem like the ideal timing to be moving up. That's a lot of siege tanks. 14 siege tanks. 5 more in production simultaneously. There are no Vipers and Brood Lords are a long way off, and the siege tanks just pounding their way through. Reynor needs to buy the Banshees. The Banshees! Reynor needs to buy time until the Broods. Whoa! The withering volleys. The creeping barrage on the creep. With the Banshees, let's see if the Spore Crawler can outflank them. Oh, he realizes the cloak, the reactionary cloak. The base down the center. There are 5 Brood Lords in production, 6 Broods. Near the front lines. More Vikings on the way, but only being incremented 2 at a time. A little bit cheaper. The Banshee's still gonna be troublesome. Here. Finally, it's taken... Oh, he missed. Are there enough? The Queens are gonna be required. He needs transfuses. He has the Corruptors. And now the Siege Tanks, their own worst enemy, as the Brood Lords raining down. Reliably firing at that max range. Vikings fighting Corruptors, but Cure's going to be driven back. He's building 4 Thors, and however many years ago, when they took away the Goliath and brought us mech Terran, while Thors, with their high impact mode, are a direct counter to those huge units in the late game. They are still a lumbering creature. They're expensive. They cost 6 supply. But 1-to-1, they can take on the Brood Lords relatively easily. We'll see if Reynor opts for, wow. The synchronized pre-igniters just incinerating the base. The Hellbats. Banelings rolling in, but they still have enough HP. Reynor does not have much gas in the bank despite being maxed out with plenty of minerals, but there's not much only minerals can do here, besides the Queens, which are slowly trying to get their way to the fight. The creep is there. The Thors are here. The Queens need to trundle back to the creep. Starting to lose some of the Brood Lords here. The Queen's nearly out of energy. No Ghost to deal with them directly. More Thors on the way. It's going to be Mass Thor Viking. All right, the Nordic build here from the north. Up against the Brood Lords of the south and the Queens trying to reign supreme. A clash between so many different things that I didn't want to phrase in my first thought processes, and I probably shouldn't have brought up in the first place. And now Thors continue. Well, Kira is maxed out. He's getting those weapons and armor upgrades. I'm not sure how many hits it takes the high impact mode to take down the Brood Lords, but it's less than you'd think. The Vikings as well. He's sieging up some of the tanks. Have to be very careful to target fire correctly. There's no spellcasters from either side. We're just brawling it out on the field. The Thors finally getting into range. They will target the Broods. The Queens are out of energy. The Broods evaporating out of the sky as the Queens are no longer able to patch them up. And who comes out ahead of that fight? Unclear. But the Hellbats are gonna split off back into Hellion mode. Does he have smart servos to transform more quickly? Indeed he does. The Lings and Banes chasing back. But the Mass Thors have held the line and started to push it forward. Cure is creeping back towards the income advantage. Vipers in production. Reynor does. His upgrades are all over the place. He's got +1 melee attack and ranged attack, though he's working on +2 for both. +3 Carapace is halfway there. And he has +1 flyer. Still 3 Brood Lords, but he hasn't decided to build any more. He's forced out Thors instead of siege tanks, which means he can use the more conventional ground army and Vipers. As siege tanks, you left a gap. Not that it would have mattered too much. They get through the buildings rather quick. He does not have building armor. Those are Adrenalings. Burrows underneath as well. The undercutting counter. Big job, huh? Casual missile turret. I think this is zoning for infestors more than anything else. Well, things slow down dramatically as both sides kind of retooling their unit compositions for the late game. The Vipers, an existential threat to the ground army. Thors, well, Blinding Cloud probably the best choice, as he only has 2 Vipers. Also can get dangerously close. The missile turret almost getting some shots off. But here comes Cure right down the center, 200 supply apiece. Here we go again. Blinding Clouds across the board. Only the back line can really fire. More Blinding Clouds. The Thors, a couple taken down quickly, but there's not that many Brood Lords. He's just pushing forward. The Queen's gonna get caught in the corner. The Vipers barely survive. Red HP. But the Brood Lords brought back up to full. And the siege tanks are a liability more than anything. He's backing off. The Brood Lords at max range, more reliable than they were just a few weeks ago. And Cure, a bit lackadaisical with his positioning, and ends up getting most of his army blinded, and the rest divided and then conquered by the overwhelming Zerg. The economy shattered as Cure, he actually didn't lose that many SCVs, but he lost the mining locations while Reynor has held on to his. The Vipers, some of them transfused. Only 3 Queens remain, and they're all pulled off the line constantly. A couple Hellion run by, but they do have 3-3 done, so... Those Hellions are definitely dangerous to any drones nearby. Hell, that's going to be working on that top left corner. A few roaches splitting off to deal with it. Scans the bottom right just to make sure he's not that far behind. Missile turrets. Blinding Cloud on the planetary fortress. The Vikings over the top. There's actually no anti-air, which means the Brood Lords will just kind of die, even though the Thors aren't in high impact mode. The planetary's taken out, though. The Ravagers, Lings, and Banes overrunning the field. Corruptors find an opportunity for caustic spray. Thor's taken out. The siege tanks are spread a little bit too thin. The Vikings, is he gonna drop them down? Indeed he does to fight. Gonna single target. Meanwhile, the Corruptors melting through the base. 20 SCVs dead in that exchange. There's no anti-air to stop. He could just pick up and get away. What am I watching? Cure's running out of money repairing this base here, but he finally will survive. Meanwhile, Reynor, the only limiting factor, I think, the larva, because all of his queens have been pulled off the line instead of injecting the hatcheries, which is way more fun. Let's be honest here. And now, Mag Field Accelerator and some Cyclones for spot defense. Reynor has shifted entirely out of the Brood Lords. A single Corruptor remains, but the unit compositions across the board have kind of adapted to the situation. Though Reynor still has more than enough economy to do multiple wave attacks, and there's no real force multipliers for Cure. He doesn't have the Ghosts, he doesn't have Liberators, there's nothing besides, well, he has 16 siege tanks and, you know, some other stuff. But 16 siege tanks, definitely the highlight. And there are still 2 Vipers on the field. The Zerglings. Oh, it looked like you could get in, but he's just gonna tear down this wall. Reynor. Oof. Viper has to pull back from the missile turret, the single corruptor. The siege tanks all pulled out of position. This planetary not able to float away. Still no building armor nor high-sec auto-tracking, so the building's relatively vulnerable. He's just got unsieged tanks, though, which just a couple in the back line, but he has so many tanks. Corrosive Bow starting to cut into them. Unsieged tanks not bad against Roach Ravager. Surprisingly effective. Just not something we see very often. But 92 Zerglings in production to try to exploit this more mobile attempt at a mech style. Corrosive Biles still raining down, and Cure just waltzing right through it. Those 90 Zerglings now hitting the field. A couple Hellbats with the army, but Cure is out of money. He's out of supply. He's landed the Vikings, but there's no one else coming to save him. The Zerg, slowly but surely, dragging everything to the unit's lost tab and tying up the series 1-1. 44 siege tanks. Wow, and 44 Hellbats. What a coincidence. 64 Hellbats. All right, well, it's interesting they're split when they're in the units lost, but it's how they died and how they're remembered. Think about that. Like and subscribe for existential dread. Only 6 Brood Lords. But they made the difference. Against that pure, almost pure siege tank composition, there just wasn't enough built-in anti-air. You don't have Marines. You had a few Vikings. The major weakness of mech. And honestly, the slightly quicker Spire for slightly less cost. I don't know if it made the difference there. Seems likely it would have been able to get that far either way, but it didn't hurt. So, we're going into game 3. All tied up. Cure, his foray into mech. It looked good, but not good enough. That was almost like a big game hunters, no rush, 10 minutes sort of game. Yeah, there was a bit of back and forth with the Hellions and Zerglings, but nothing that really changed the trajectory of the builds until really the Brood Lord showed up. Now we're on 10,000 feet, which, don't get Quentin Tarantino excited, but a mineral wall, a lot of minerals in this wall, kind of blocking a third base. Meanwhile, with the Reaper jump over on this side as well. Here are fancy sponsors, which, well, I guess there are several options for third bases. Some Zerg rocks down the center as well, which bleed out after 8 minutes. They're dehydrated on the field. A temporary wall, much like the mineral wall, but in a very different way. So we see. Now we've seen Bio and Mech, and to be fair, historically, new maps doesn't even irrelevant to balance patches. New maps, Zergs tend to struggle because Zerg is all about reacting, adapting, and this is, for many of these players, maybe not the first time playing these maps, but probably single-digit games. Players do have a tendency to really ignore them till they're on the ladder. So this tournament may be their first opportunity. And things like siege tank locations, Reaper jumps, Liberator siege ups are quite relevant. Though the Liberator has been slightly nerfed, its sight range is now 9 instead of 10. The effectiveness, or the effect of this, is that it no longer can actually see the edge of its Liberator range without a spotter. Much like the siege tank can't see the edge of its range. Oh no, not again! Here gets the first, no, not 2, not 2. Brenda, can you see him? Who designs these things? Why does Terran only have one more eye than Terran? All right, are they telling on themselves? That's a weird but probably accurate conspiracy theory, Susan, but move along. Sorry. Oh my. Blacked out from... No, not again. Not another one. Okay, the Reaper is just infuriating, yet finally gonna be taken down. Go swimming in the fancy pond over here. Reynor did have to spend... Well, he spent some time mining through this mineral wall in order to get the third on the low ground. We'll see if that was worth it compared to expanding to a further outside location. Roach Horn's on the way. 3.5 minutes in. Is definitely on the earlier side. Not guaranteed to be a super early pressure, but I think he's leaving his options open. What is this cure? 3, 2, 1, 1. 3 command centers, 2 barracks, a factory, and a starport. A bunch of Marines with stim and medevacs. A bunch of dudes with drugs and guns. And a bone to pick with the dangerous aliens over there. Or so they claim. Alright, makes me feel right at all. Is that a hard wall? Interesting. I've got 1 letter. Why? Well, 1. So, unfortunately for Reynor, he is hardwalling the only game where Cure's not going Hellions. Apparently there's Zerg rocks over here as well. Zerg rocks, unless there's some way to switch it, but by default, they get fully dehydrated at 8 minutes. This is unless there's creep near them, because the creep hydrates them. Now, they don't heal like normal Zerg, and they can't be, like, transfused, but it stops them from bleeding out, which is awkward, because now the queens are like, feels like we're working against each other on this one. That's just Zerg. That's how Zerg plays, Brenda. Yeah, but Cyril still wins things. I know. There was also a patch note about the flesh squibs, or something, that was preventing the Zerg rocks from looking as Zergy. But I think they have definitely fixed that with the sheer amount of tentacles that are squibbling around here as the queens throwing their knitting needles by the dozen at it. Thankfully, they're not going to run out. Meanwhile, the Marines just come stimming in. And I think you'll be interested to see the straight up a wall at the natural. I wonder, Reynor may have to take that out himself as well. Lost 1 Overlord, actually a bit supply blocked. He's actually researching +1 carapace there. One of the queens gets gunned down. The rocks are taken out. The roaches finish what the queen started. Meanwhile, Cure pretty comfortably mining from 3 bases. But Reynor has 67 drones, so a very solid economy to start things off. That wall off is stressing me out, though. I don't think Cure has spotted it at all. I think he'd very much be looking for the opportunity to take it out if he saw both those Evo chambers upgrading. But we're seeing a shift into the more ground-based army. The Spore Crawlers on the perimeter, only going to mildly discourage the drop. But, oh, and he can't move past this without, yeah. Will escape for now, but takes a lot of damage from the Spores. Another double drop loaded up at the Queens. Almost. And, yep, there's not enough range. The Lings don't yet have speed. The Marines, very much done with their upgrades. And trading quite well. He's gonna just grind right through the roaches. The Lings with speed, trying to close in as well, but Cure happy to just let them go. He is down 20 supply, though. With this many roaches, it's a bit misleading, the supply count. roaches known for taking a significant amount of supply despite their general effectiveness. It's kind of their whole thing. Back to the days of Stefano and his 200 supply roach timings. +1 melee attack, +2 carapace on the way. Melee attack a lot closer. Now we're going to see drilling claws for the first time. Those widow mines. You know what everybody was clamoring for? Widow mine buffs. I know. They've heard you. The people. People are like, I love widow mines. All right? This message brought to you by Big Widow Mine. Under penalty of death. So now the widow mines will burrow faster, unburrow faster, and be generally more effective in a situation where they just were struggling so much before. The siege tanks from the low ground easily able to take out the hatchery. 3 Vipers already on the way. And Reynor, just kill the Roach Warren. All right, just get rid of the Roach Warren. Stop with this madness. It is definitely a wall, and I think Reynor's playing around it for the most part right now. The Marines stimming forward, that Overlord. Persecuted directly. And an Ultraless Cavern is on the way. Reynor going to the Hive Tech, the Ultras, to try to break this sort of composition. Though, in my mind, crazy place. Cure already has siege tanks, widow mines, and plenty of marauders. If there was ever a time for lurkers or broods, and those siege tanks able to hit the gas geysers, you know, he might help them out. The minefield. Okay, he's gonna spread the widow mines. Oh no, no. +2. Blinding Cloud to save the upgrade. 1 second, 1 second. He finishes +2 Carapace and Cure. Double kill on the tanks. Reynor's gonna hold for now. And the Banelings break through the wall at the back. The Banelings break through the wall into the natural. But losing a lot at the front. Reynor, the reinforcements are in place. And Reynor's army getting thinned out on both sides quite quickly. +2 melee attacks is denied in that precarious position. Trying to drag out the Widow Mine hits onto the army. But Cure manages to mitigate the damage. And the Widow Mine's doing their job of keeping the Zerg from committing their forces before the Marines and Marauders can grind their way through. But Reynor, still at 200 supply. He's got 5 Ultraless in production. They're still yet to be delivered. And chitinous plating is still about a minute out. The paper lists are a liability until they get that upgrade completed. And Cure is starting to grind his way through again. Not really struggling economically, though Reynor's trying to change that. Hits the natural, but Reynor's hitting a mostly dried up base. Whereas Cure is taking out the outlying fresh bases that have a majority of the workers as well. And a couple queens and a hatchery. He splits, he stims, the hatchery goes down, and they'll expect some of us in the wreckage, brothers. Not all of these units will survive, but enough of them to fit in 2 medevacs. Cure's down by 10 supply, but he drops mules at his 4th base. Reynor's down to 3 bases, and none of them have full mineral patches. He's consuming his hatchery, which is stressing me out. But that's not the only thing that's done so this game, just to editorialize. He's expanding across the board. I can't help but feel that Cure maintains the momentum despite Reynor's composition. Cure's so good at just allocating his forces to the right place before it's the right time. Whereas Reynor is trying to outmaneuver him and finding himself, well, you can't outmaneuver a brick wall. The Zerglings cut into by some of the mines, but great counterattack by Reynor. Gonna kill some more of the SCVs, 10 of them. Cure still maxed out, though. Reynor struggling to get above 175. The Vipers zoned out by the Widowmines, the Liberators. There's no anti-air besides Ravagers and Vipers now. Cure maxed out with money in the bank. The counterattacks have barely scratched the surface of the economy. Looking to find some more, but that hatchery already softened up by some of the Vipers. And now the Marauders are closing in. Gonna force the issue. Few more hits. Parasitic Bomb and Fungal Wombo combo. Quarantine some of the Medivacs. Corrosive Bows don't quite knock out. The Ultras going into the Venn diagram of freedom here. Oh. High-sec auto-tracking, building all the the Viper almost taken out, pulls back. Thing is, he can't come too far forward or the Widowmines will hit. Well, it looks like this army will eventually be taken out. And Cure actually has a base over here, but another army just takes out a hatchery in the bottom left corner. The drones, looks like a Liberator was taken down. 11 SCVs. So Cure, losing some of his economy. Reynor still maintaining much of his. A brutal game. Feels like a real bloodbath out there. As Cure keeps losing much of his reinforcements, his SCVs. But he always seems to have that critical mass of army supply that makes it so tough to actually find a winning engagement. Like, every time Reynor wins a fight, it costs him so much. It's a victory almost in name only. He's lost 5,000 more resources, only 1,000 more gas. That Infestor spotting the army coming around. Does he see the Infestor sign? Probably not under all those.
Our SCVs are under attack.
Zergling counter again. Widowmine hit some of the SCVs as well. And things starting to really be undercut for Cure, but he still has 200 supply. He's sitting with a beautiful spread. I can't believe it's not budding. He's got Widowmines underneath, Liberators above, Ghosts behind, Marines and Marauders for the juicy center. The Zerglings keep darting in and cutting away some of the SCVs. But how do you fight this in a sustainable fashion? In a way that doesn't leave you crippled. Cure is maxed out with money in the bank. The Ultras are committed to the other side of the map. Here, oh, that Widowmine. There's not enough okay, he had 3 Ravagers, which is what you need to take it down. The Ghost! Surprise, he cloaks! Oh, no! Oh, what a devastating ambush. The Ghost punching through all of the Ultras, holding on to his base in the top right corner. Wow. What a play. Move over, Shakespeare. The Ultras trying to cleave through. Blinding Cloud. Parasitic Bomb wipes out some of the Medivacs. In fact, the ones that aren't out of life are out of energy. But the critical mass, that Infestor, is still in a premium position. He needs the fungal so badly. The Ultra's trundling down the ramp at the rally point. I think he's trying to micro the Zerglings on the other side, but now the ramp. The tech tree is going to be chopped down entirely. Liberators, the Widowmines are recharging. There's an Ultra burrowed in this mineral line. What's happening there? The Hive is taken down. 4 more Ultras in production, but Ultras trundling around. It's become a bit of an awkward exchange, to be sure. Reynor unable to dislodge the army throughout most of this. The SCV, the boys? The Planetary Fortress takes down one of the Ultras. Another few of them are bruised badly. The incomes are shattered on both sides. In fact, Reynor has more because the SCVs decided to take a trip into hostile territory. Not exactly sure was the time for that. The Widow Mines, the Ultras, and there's still the Infestor! Oh, the timing is just slightly off, though. The Infestor does not unburrow. There's still 5 Ultralists, but there are 12 Ghosts. Kira's up 60 supply. This entire game feels like Reynor was trying to set up the perfect engagement, but he was a long way off of it. Like, it wasn't even that close. He's constantly counterattacking, but Kira's momentum, he still had the army the whole time. That continues. 34,000 to 22,000 resources lost. Very simply, the Ultras and even the Infestors are not getting it done. He has not been able to force the fight. And he may lose the war before he gets it. There are Widow Mines scattered throughout, and even if he had Microbial Shroud, 1, good luck having the energy on those Infestors. 2, it does nothing against Widow Mines and Snipe, so... Now, Reynor is trying to at this point, he's trying to make Kira come to him, but Kira's actually maxed out. I don't even think Reynor realizes that. What a Kira game. Somehow it feels like he never really won anything directly, but he's maxed out, and he's just chilling. All right, he's thriving right now. Just trundling around with an army that almost impossible to beat. The parasitic bomb on the medevacs. Down to 35 SCVs. Reynor has re-expanded to this high ground. 4 Infestors. Throws out a fungal. EMP a little late before the fungal's able to connect. The medevac count is down to 2, which is not high. So, unfortunately, the hatchery count is down effectively to 2 as well, especially if these Vipers consume it to... So that was a change as well. You can no longer consume buildings to death. You can consume them to like 10 HP or 1 tick of consume HP. So no more drama like that. I've only ever seen like Dark do that, but it's not 10%, 10. Like somebody knocks on the door too hard and it'll kill the hatchery, but still. At least you have that, I guess. Feels like a prolonged death animation. There is a world, there is a universe where Kira, for some reason, unburrows all of his mines, puts his entire army in a tiny ball in the very middle of the field on creep, and then Reynor gets Fungal, Blinding Cloud, and Parasitic Bomb all at the same time. And in that world, Reynor wins this game. I don't think that's the world we live in, though. Considering how Kira plays literally all of the time, there's just never an opportunity to take that game-winning fight when he gets to this sort of composition. Though, it's getting kind of close. All right. What tech buildings? Reynor has a spawning pool and a baneling nest and a lair. He lost his Ultra Cavern, his infestation pit. He never really had anything else. The Roach one a long time ago. Kira just narrowing down the bases. But losing Overlords, he's about to be supply blocked at 148, which is clearly not ideal. Sieging up from this high ground again. 10 more SCVs dead. Kira with barely more than he started with. He has 180 army supply. That is just... That's too much. That is so much Terran. $12 Ghosts. 31 Marauders. 59 Marines. And with Ghosts only being 2 supply, that means 12 more supply of army here. Somehow Ghosts less supply and more HP. Crazy. A skinny fat Ghost, if you will. Scan, pops an Infestor. He's just pre-scanning wherever he goes. This biomass is so large, even 2 or 3 fungals wouldn't be able to cover it, all right? Much like your mother, it's just too much. There's, like, what are you gonna do? Reynor, either out of spite or desperation or some other unknown emotion, is gonna try, but this, I mean, the fungal hits everything. The Banelings roll through. The army evaporates, but Reynor's crumbles first. Well, it wasn't the worst fight for either side, but seems like we were sliding towards that inevitable. Oof. The army size for the last 10 minutes literally doubled by Cure. Just way too much. Bit of an awkward game, but brings Cure within 1 game of victory. The mech did not pay off, but the bio army, Reynor still seems a little lost on how to deal with it. And if he doesn't figure it out soon, the series will follow. We're going to Celestial Enclave. What the hell? Is that a worker path? Can you go on the water slide / sewage tunnel? All right, tomato, tomato. This is looking crazy. Remember, you can vote for the new ladder maps, and even if you don't play the ladder, you should vote. 1, to show there's interest in the map contest and new maps and development in general. And 2, because this is what they're going to play all the tournaments on. So even if you don't have a dog in that particular fight, if there's maps you want to see the pros fight on, well, they're kind of relevant to you. So, and all of the matches, including today and from the last few days, all the matches from the new patch so far are from Wardy's Team Liquid Map Contest. So any maps you see there should be listed on TL.net. There should be a link in the description. Jimmy! Sorry. After you like and subscribe. But Game 4. Quite an arduous series. Both players still kind of playing their style of StarCraft 2. And to be honest, with the changes to Widow Mines and Ghosts and Siege Tanks, I do think Cure comes out ahead in terms of stylistic patch changes. All of them kind of favoring that more attrition-based style, making each of those units arguably more cost-effective over time. And Reynor not really embracing the well, he has not yet upgraded Microbial Shroud. But again, I gotta come back to, it's 100 energy on an Infestor, which getting enough energy on an Infestor in general is not exactly the easiest process against Ghosts. And having less fungals does not seem like a fun time. So, yeah, this is a pocket base with a worker-only path, which is a very interesting idea. Reynor with 4 hatches and not even mining enough gas for speed. I think he said, was this a command center? Okay, full macro from both sides. I think both sides saw a pocket base, and I'm like, that's mine. But Reynor taking it a step further here. Well, it's going to be even more so than your average game. We're going to have the build-up phase, at least to start. Literally neither side building anything but basic units. A few Marines from Cure. Somehow he's still just going to do the 3-2-1-1 because Kerrigan forbid that we do anything but build a bunch of Marines as a basic Stim is on the way. Reynor not committing to anything yet. Going to add the evolution chamber. Probably a lair soon. But it remains to be determined. Yeah, the roaches so far have not gotten it done. Roaches are just not a very cost-effective unit. They're just an effective unit. You can build a lot of them and get them in places that nobody wants them to be. So, aptly named on that. But they drop off dramatically as your opponent gets near equal army supply, as we saw on multiple occurrences in the last few games. +1 Carapace is the choice, covering all of his units. Unfortunately, not the bases. Oh, the pocket base only has 5 mineral patches and 1 gas. All right, so not as valuable, but definitely just kind of like a appendix space over there. Two engineering base. The macro, but we have not. The Overlord died. Everyone's retreated to their quarters. The map's so clean. As they continue about their business. Another. Oh, even scaling up the barracks production past the first 2 medevacs. Wow. This is a very committed barracks build. What's happening here? Struggling with the double drop, but he eventually gets it lined up. A set of rocks, a blockade. That little shield is just a graphical effect. I think it's just a normal set of rocks. Such as it is. The spores on the perimeter as well. The double drop spots the Overlord, gonna drop out and take it down. And Reynor he's on the edge of a supply block with it. But now the not so surprising yet dangerous build is revealed. Marine still. 4 more racks. That's, I'm assuming, yeah. The Octo racks is coming together. Really, leaning into the less mineral patches and trying to max out that economy early. A Factorio-looking build in the main base here, out of cure. Meanwhile, Reynor with the... Well, 3 more hatches in production. Mass macro hatch. And an infestation pit as well. So, looking more and more like some sort of Ultralisk rush. Which, against just mass Marines, even with a few tanks, could certainly be dangerous. Maybe we'll even see the microbial... No, let's not get crazy yet. Medevacs. Surrounded, driven back. The creep continuing to metastasize across the field. Hive has begun. Another double drop loaded up, and Cure is going to be a little behind on economy once Reynor fills in the drones. Again, because of those limited mineral patches at the 3rd. Or the pocket. I think we'll call it the pocket, just to be clear. The Queens moving forward to engage the medevacs. 4 infestors on the way to hold things down. Meanwhile, 2-2 upgrades for either side, and Reynor actually has the advantage overall. Trying to clear some of the creep. The Queens spreading it back just as quickly, and the Zerglings anticipating. Multiple spores. He may just decide to fly by towards the pocket base. Hatchery taken down. The Queens looking to intercept. And get off my... Brenda, are you okay? No! Oh, I wasn't. You're just supposed to say yeah. No! Fine. No! Sorry, I am Like for Ultralisk Cavern is on the way. Adrenal glands as well. And Reynor clearly lining up for that massive Zerg timing. Cure clearly lining up to slow that down as much as possible. So we'll see. Now that he has, wow, 2-2 on the way. 120 army supply going to be maxed out. Both sides are going to be maxed out before 9 minutes. Or effectively so. The Zerglings looking to wrap around. Not quite finding it. Meanwhile, that is just so many Zerg. 178 Zerglings. 2-2 upgrades are done. This would be the time. He has an upgrade advantage with mass Zergling. Even though he doesn't have the adrenal glands, still, well, there's the counter. Is there enough here to deal with it? Remember, the upgrades go to the Lings. The planetary fortress is surrounded. There might be enough repair. Meanwhile, Hatchery's going to be taken down. It's close, but not close enough. Hatchery's taken out. Planetary's maintained. Zerglings cut down a bit, but the supply filled in with the Ultralisks. And more Zerglings coming around. Gonna get a full surround on pretty much everything. Widowmines take a few bites, but eventually chews through the command center itself. And the reinforcements, there's nothing stopping these now adrenal gland Zerglings from getting into the main base. And what was once a strong push with reinforcements is now on its own. The Ultralisks don't have chitinous plating. The siege tanks are in position, but a fungal comes out. The Queen's behind. Fungals across the board. The Ultras cleaving through everything. The Queen's keeping them together just long enough. And look at that. Cure drops 100 supply in seconds. The main base is gone. The push is shredded. And Reynor overruns the field in the most Zerg-like possible fashion. And ties up the series 2-2. Well, we're going to game 5. Cure with the predictable timing that Reynor barely holds on, but as soon as he crosses that threshold with the Ultras and the counterattack, Cure is forced into a do-or-die scenario. And he ended up with the second one. Game 5. Satellite years. Quite a large map from what we've seen before. We'll see who that ends up favoring. I see another ultra timing against the Marines and Marauders, but that time Reynor is able to limit. That's the difference. And that's part of why... excuse me. That's part of why things can be a bit skewed on new maps as well as new balance. Is Zergs need to find those timing. Zergs need to know where to expand, where to prioritize even things like creep spread. And that takes some time. Not too long, usually. But, and far be it from me to be a Terran apologist. Oh, far be it. But it is a lot easier to find a nasty location to siege up your tanks than to find the correct way to expand to avoid that being a strong option. And many maps do have those sort of locations. Plenty don't. Some maps do have moopies in dumpsters. Plenty don't. Unrelated. But I do think if you played this series again, the exact same balance patch, same maps in a month, Reynor, maybe he wouldn't win on those maps we saw, but it wouldn't look as painful. Though, maybe Cure figures something out as well. So, historically, Cure has played a very, and that's why he's the People's Terran, alright? A very similar kind of high percentage play style that is almost irrelevant to the maps. Whereas Zerg doesn't have that. We'll call it luxury. We'll see. Reaper's headed across. Somehow just barely missed the drone. By a few pixels there. And Reynor may be able to sneak his third base without any delay. A very nice thing. Feels much better than, you know, being 30 seconds beyond like an entire queen build time. Queen deals with the Reaper. Reaper spots the hatch timing. Oh no, this is just rude. Churlish! Insubordinate! Brenda, come. Oh, come. That's disrespectful. Reaper just playing ring around the Queen. Knows that especially based on the hatchery timing, Zergling speed probably not going to be quite as quick. And Hellions are making their way across the map. We're back to the 1-1-1. The Barracks Factory Starport. Destiny Cloudfist build. I heard it called in Fever Dream at some point. But again, looking to come around and infuriate the Queens as much as possible, which I don't think is too hard to pull off. Now, which direction will Kira go for Game 5? He's succeeded and failed with Bio so far. Hyper Shees, he commits to the Speed Banshees before Cloak. These are Battle Banshees here. All right, he's going to go with the spicy new build. Now, the functionality of the Hyperflight Banshees has not been changed. It's just the upgrade is now 20 seconds quicker. So, still 125, 125. It makes the Banshees faster than pretty much any unit but Mutas, though can be zoned out by Queens and Spores. It's interesting to go for it before Cloak, indicating that he wants to build a lot of these. I don't think it's more... Against Protoss, I think it's more valuable than Cloak. But against Zerg, I think I'd probably take the Cloak most of the time. We'll see. It'll certainly come as a surprise. But how many... And he's building more barracks, so this is not mech. He knows he's building Banshee speed, right? Not Cloak. Is it fat? I don't know how long the Cloak upgrade is, to be honest. I'm not sure if Banshee speed is actually faster than it now. Maybe it is. He does not have Cloak queued up. Thing is, the Cloak Banshees could have... Well, we'll see. We'll see. Banshees have always been quite a annoying option. Have been the staple. You know, the 2 games Kira won were off the back of the Banshees constantly putting pressure. Whereas the games he did not find success or even go Banshees at all, he's lost. All right, keeping the Zerg in check in that early mid-game when they're trying to build up the drone count is the most important thing, and apparently the most important indicator for success. The speed Banshees go in, the speed Banshees go out. Can't explain that. Well, besides the Queens with their knitting needles, not needing overseers. So he went Hyper Shees, but yeah, I don't think so. I don't. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Just not as good. Curious choice. Cure choice. The creep continuing to spread out. Reynor's already pushed it out quite 6.5 minutes in. It's touching the halfway mark of an admittedly large map. Looks kind of crazy on the snow as well. That kind of sparse. Reynor, keep creeping so I can use the mini-map on the thumbnail. Jimmy, edit that out. They don't need to know. Well, the Banshee's finding an opportunity. The Spore Crawler, mostly there to discourage them from getting any closer, but the Speed Banshees definitely just picking away at the drones. Slipping in 6 drones. And one queen, not enough to deal. God, it's going from a concern to a kerfuffle now. 8 drones dead. And Cure still building up back at home. Does he have the Octo Racks? Indeed he does. Building up that Marine tank count. Yes, the creep is continuing forth. Hellbats with the push. Cure choosing to move out well before combat shield here. But he does have 1-1. The infestors are already out. No microbial shroud, but again, fungal probably the priority here. The Zerglings looking for the wraparound. And the Queens can tank some of the damage at the front. Reynor with a lot of money in the bank here, but the Queens pulled off the line. Gonna cut off the reinforcements. Hive is already done. Fungal to slow things down, and the reinforcements ripped it apart by the Zerglings. But the Banshees will protect them back at home, though they haven't been repaired. Not that that matters very much against Zerglings. Here we go, looking for the full flank. Fungal down the center. Combat shield done in 4 seconds, but these Marines may be done before that. Or maybe not, as they just stim their way forward. The infestors exploderated by everything nearby. Cure's up 30 supply. The Banshees coming back around. The Queens have something to say about it, but won't for long, as the Marines will gun them down. And oh no, the Italian Stallion being crippled here. And the early timing, Cure's adapted. He didn't let him get to the hive. He moved out before 200 supply. It's entirely legal to do so. And, well, there's Ultraless in production. Chitinous plating, adrenal glands, but the hive tech is in the mail, but it has yet to be delivered. The Zergling counter. Cure. Reynor on the ropes. The Ultras. There are no Marauders. So, the Ultras, even without chitinous plating, will have a chance. This hatchery, I think, is an awkward spot for the larva. There's another hatchery just right down the center, looking crazy right now. My eye's kind of hurting on this creep. Hard to concentrate on anything, but it looks like Cure's doing just fine. The infestors, another fungal, but he's pulling back. The Ultra moving forward in the siege tank range. Reynor's gonna have one shot to break out of this, and it's not gonna be a very easy one either way. For all the fire and fury. The 2-2 upgrades closing in for Cure. Chitinous plating and +2 melee attack for Reynor. Cure continuing to send reinforcements. The Zerglings not numerous enough to break them. Chitinous plating in 5 seconds. 2-2 and 10. If Reynor breaks out, he's got to go now. This is the perfect time. The initial fight happening before the 2-2's done. The Queen's trying to keep things intact. Not all of them on creep. Huge fungal down the center. The Ultra around the corner, cleaving through dozens of Marines. Another Ultra coming by. The lack of Marauders painfully apparent for Cure. The hero lists will survive. And Reynor, did he rebuild this or did it not die? There's no way this hatchery didn't die. He must have rebuilt it throughout that whole fight. And somehow Reynor claws it back. The main weakness of Cure's strategy was a lack of Marauders. He hit this timing so much earlier, which means since Reynor survived long enough to get Ultras, well, now he needs to shift into an anti-Ultra composition. So Reynor, with a whole lot of bases, but not that many drones to mine them, and creep kind of strung out in between. But a single Ultra to defend the drop. The Queens! Well, a bit painful, but gonna knock him down. Almost gets a couple, but another double drop working on the creep on the right side. Quite a game. Reynor, with actually the unit composition advantage, but struggling to patch together his economy. Whereas Cure trying to put together the tech to deal with the Ultras, but has been mostly untouched back at home. Baneling Nest is on the way. double Baneling nest just to make sure, a decoy Baneling nest. That tells you how much Reynor clearly wants them. A hatchery. Fungal. A little bit on the later side. No microbial shot, but again, I keep coming back to, really, are you going to use 100 energy on something that could be used against you? Though he doesn't really have any ranged units, to be fair. You need the fungals. You desperately need the fungals. Otherwise, those Marines and Marauders will prance away. Terran optimized for cowardice in so many scenarios. But now stepping onto the creep, Cure has rebuilt. The upgrades 2-2 across the board. Ultras, the Queen's cut off. Trying to hold. A lot of the drones going to be taken down as well. Reinforcements cloven in twain by the Ultras and the Zerglings. Most of the army cut off. The Zerglings at the door, grinding through the supply depots. And much of the army comes back to deal with this. Reynor trying to take advantage of the opportunity. The Zerglings slip into the natural. A single Marauder out in front. Those Infestors in a precarious position. Scans forward. 7 workers dead on other side. So far, Reynor's lost a lot more, but he's been able to rebuild it for the most part. Cure's actually a little bit supply blocked after the Zerglings take down so many depots. Three infantry weapons and armor, but Reynor has re-established 5 bases in a relatively coherent set of locations. The siege tanks on the high and low ground. The Ultra count at 7. 15 Marauders and 4 tanks now, but not even a hint of ghosts. The Zergling counter into the 3rd. Cure under 50 SCVs. Starting to really struggle to keep his economy together. He doesn't have enough back at home, but if he goes back, then the Ultras can cut everything that went forth. 3-3 is done, though. Cure gonna try to draw the Ultras into the fray. The fungal on the back line! And the Ultras trundling across. And there's not enough to stop them. He goes off a creep. He doesn't know how deep the tank line runs. But it's very likely he could just keep it going. Coming around the corner, I think realizing now it's just the 1 siege tank. But he targets the Infestor. Ooh. But the army easily surrounded, and now the Ultras are on the march. There's nothing to deal with the Liberators directly. The almost can't even see the liberation zone on that white background, but Spire's on the way. Reynor has double the workers. His income taking off. Cure has been very limited. He went for the big bio timing. He only has 3 orbital commands. He doesn't have that entire stable of mules that will sometimes carry Terrans with their minimal SCV count. And he doesn't have the army supply this time, nor the ghosts, to turn the tides against the sheer amount of Ultralisks. Reynor has held on by the skin of his weird Zerg teeth and is looking to actually turn it all around. He definitely has the advantage. Gear still has a huge army, as he always seems to. But is that enough? There are 10 Ultras on the field. Infestors being filled in. Banelings added into the composition. I look in the upgrades, I still see that speed Banshee choice, which was confusing at best, and maybe regretting it now. Not that I think it factored in too dramatically. Gonna get behind the mineral line, not targeting the hatch. The Banelings closing in, the bio gonna be slurped up. Corruptors on the way, just a few. With that quicker Spire, not that that's a huge factor, but enough Corruptors to deny the Liberators. Reynor in a privileged position of being able to afford another branch of the tech tree without suffering or making his unit composition less effective. Cure, no Ghost Academy. That means he's angling for just the 200 supply mass and hoping he can break Reynor with it. But with the Corruptors on the field, oh, and apparently that's an air. Oh, what? Deja vu. Spins around. I don't know what happened there. With a Spore Crawler. Oh. Well, that drop's going to be cleaned up easily. Maybe get a drone. The rest getting pinned into the corner, and Reynor reestablishing the field. The creep spread around almost every side. It's been a brutal game. But for the first time in the Tier 3 late game, I think Reynor has the decisive and potentially insurmountable advantage. Here comes Cure with actually more army supply. But there's 10 Ultralists and not a single ghost to match them. The Corruptor's knocking down the Medivacs. The Ultras around the field. The Fungal comes through the center. And Cure, GG. Reynor takes the series 3 games to 2. Able to adapt and overcome. Cure tried to, he hit a strong timing. Honestly, it looked like he might be able to bring it home. But Reynor kept his cool. He didn't tilt, and he brought together the right army to punch through. Now, the patch changes, I don't think factoring into this series, well, the big one, the Banelings with +5 HP. And maybe the siege tanks not being abducted, but I don't think that's a big difference. Microbial Shroud is not quite useless, but the fact it's on the Infestor makes it so. I am convinced, after seeing more and more Zerg games, which are few and far between, but you simply don't have the energy on Infestors. Between the fact they can be EMP'd and die to, like, it seems like single tank hits almost, getting 100 energy on top of the need to fungal is just unrealistic. So, now Reynor won this series. If Microbial Shroud was easier to use, well, maybe Terran would have no chance. But Cure, also not really changing up. The only real change from what I saw Cure doing for the last 10 years was the Hyper Shees in Game 5, which are still a questionable decision in my opinion. Not sure what he was thinking with that one, but I doubt we'll see him do that again. But quite a series. Game 5, unfortunately for the algorithm, but fortunately for those of you who watched till the end. Thank you, by the way. The most dramatic back and forth. Reynor takes it, scrapes out a victory, 3-2 on these new maps. And again, new maps and new balance. Zerg is the reactive race. All right, we're waiting for Cyril to show us how it's done. But Reynor filling in strongly here today. So thank you to Wardy, Team Liquid, and the intern at Blizzard for giving us a new patch and executing it well. And I look forward to more in the future, which apparently is going to happen. All right, we're not locked into any of these changes necessarily. At least I hope. Otherwise, my heart can't take it otherwise. I can't pay those healthcare bills. But you can help maybe by, if you got the means of motivation, checking out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. But thank you to our mule tier patrons bringing in those extra minerals like Cure could have used in the last game. Big Jig, Devin Dordrak, Kate, Mario Suit, and everyone. Glad you still enjoy. I'll see you next time. Check out all the notes and vote in the TL map contest. Link in the description. And, well, good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.